people aren't just watching The Chosen anymore, they're being completely shaken by it. And the craziest part, some viewers claim the change hits them instantly, as in one episode, one moment, and suddenly they're seeing faith in a way they never expected. And honestly, even after all the stories I've heard about this show, what I just learned shocked me more than anything before. Section 1. 5,000 character-long paragraph. No breaks. I recently came across something that honestly left me stunned in the best possible way. It turns out that The Chosen isn't just inspiring people or making them emotional, it's actually pushing people to reevaluate everything they believed. And for some, that shift happens almost immediately. I didn't realize the impact had reached this level until I saw people sharing how they hit play on episode 1 expecting just another show, only to find themselves feeling something far deeper than entertainment. According to countless messages fans have been sending to the cast, the moment they started watching, something grabbed hold of them in a way they couldn't explain. One fan even wrote that they felt like the show spoke directly to them. And I have to admit, the way they described it gave me chills. They said they had been non-religious their entire life, never interested in faith or church, but the moment they saw the portrayal of Jesus, gentle yet powerful, simple yet deeply moving, they felt something shift inside them instantly. And hearing that reminded me so much of the reactions Jonathan Rumi talked about in interviews when he shared how people who never believed or even cared about spirituality suddenly found themselves wanting to pray, wanting to understand, wanting to feel connected to something bigger. The wildest part is that these people are not the type you'd expect to be influenced by a show like this at all. Some of them even admitted they originally started watching because a friend insisted, or because they were curious about the hype, or simply because they were bored and scrolling. But The Chosen doesn't hit you like a typical series. It creeps up on you emotionally until suddenly you're watching with your heart instead of your eyes. One viewer said that within minutes of watching the first episode, they felt overwhelmed by a sense of peace they had never felt before, and that word, peace, kept coming up again and again in the stories I read. It seems like there's something about the show's honesty, the rawness, the way it portrays broken people finding hope, that resonates even with those who aren't religious at all. And I think that's why the reactions feel so powerful. It's not about someone standing on a stage preaching. It's not about pressure or persuasion. It's about people seeing compassion, love, forgiveness, and humanity in a way they've never seen it before, and suddenly realizing they want to understand where that feeling comes from. The impact becomes even more understandable when you think about the way Jonathan approaches the character. He has said many times that he brings his own relationship with Christ into his performance, and that authenticity shows. It makes the character feel real, emotional, human. And that's exactly why viewers get hit so strongly, so quickly. They're not watching a distant historical figure, they're watching someone who... What truly caught my attention next was how many people say their reaction wasn't just emotional, it was immediate, almost like something clicked inside them without warning. And the more stories I read, the more unbelievable it became, because these weren't people who were already interested in Christianity or searching for something spiritual. Many of them describe themselves as disconnected, skeptical, or simply uninterested in anything related to faith. Yet somehow, the moment they saw the relationships in The Chosen, the way the characters love, forgive, break down, and rise back up, something inside them changed. One person shared that before watching the show, they felt numb to anything spiritual, but halfway through the first episode, they found themselves tearing up without knowing why. They said it felt like the show was revealing a side of Jesus they had never imagined, not distant or unreachable, but human, warm, someone who could look you in the eyes and understand your entire life without saying a word. That kind of emotional reaction doesn't just happen often, especially to people who don't consider themselves religious at all. And that's what makes these stories so fascinating. These instant emotional shifts are happening to people from completely different backgrounds. Students, parents, young adults, even older viewers who thought they were set in their ways. One viewer wrote that they had never believed in anything spiritual, but as soon as Jesus was introduced in the show, they felt something open inside, and they couldn't explain it. They described it as a strange mix of peace and intensity, like their heart recognized something before their mind could process it. Hearing that reminded me of something Dallas Jenkins has said many times, that the goal of the show isn't to preach, but to let people witness the humanity of Jesus and the people around him. And I think that's exactly why these quick emotional reactions feel so real. It's not about anyone telling them what to believe. It's simply about watching people who feel lost, broken, rejected, or misunderstood find hope in the most unexpected ways. And for viewers who see their own struggles reflected in those characters, the emotional impact hits instantly. Another fan shared that they were going through a difficult time, feeling disconnected from everyone, and somehow watching Jesus call the disciples made them feel seen, like the moment wasn't just happening on screen, but also in their own life. They said it made them want to understand why they felt that connection so strongly, and that curiosity pushed them to start reading, exploring, and asking questions they never cared about before. What's even more surprising is how many people describe the show as giving them a feeling they didn't know they needed, whether it's comfort, clarity, or just a sense of being understood. And the fact that so many of these reactions are happening instantly from the very first episode only shows how powerful storytelling can be when it comes from a genuine place. The emotional pull is real, the honesty is real, and watching viewers express these immediate changes makes me think The Chosen is tapping into something far bigger than any of us expected. But trust me, what's coming next in these reactions is even more unbelievable, because some viewers say the show didn't just make them emotional, it made them take action almost immediately. What amazed me even more was discovering how quickly some viewers acted on the feelings they experienced while watching The Chosen. These weren't slow, gradual changes. They were immediate steps people took almost without thinking, as if something inside them pushed them forward before they could even process what was happening. I read a story from someone who said they finished the first episode and, without understanding why, felt this sudden urge to look up the passages being shown. They admitted they had never touched a Bible before, never even cared to know what was in it. Yet somehow they found themselves searching for more as soon as the credits rolled. Another viewer shared that after watching Jesus call Mary Magdalene, they felt overwhelmed with emotion and ended up sitting in silence for nearly an hour, trying to understand why the scene had hit them so hard. They said it made them want to read the real story just to see if the feeling they had made any sense. The most surprising part is how many people described this same kind of reaction. Not slow, not planned, but instant. One person said that before watching the show, they believed religion was just something people grew up with. Nothing more. But the moment they saw the compassion in Jesus' eyes during a simple conversation, something inside them softened, and they said it felt like a wall they didn't even know they had suddenly cracked. Hearing that made me realize how powerful raw emotion can be when it appears unexpectedly. And it becomes even more understandable when you think of how the cast approaches their roles. Jonathan Rumi has talked many times about entering into the emotional truth of each scene, and that authenticity clearly transfers to viewers. People can feel when something is coming from a real place, and that feeling hits harder than any speech or argument ever could. Some fans even admitted that they found themselves praying for the first time, not because they planned to, but because they felt this sudden urge to speak out loud, as if they needed to respond to the emotions the show awakened. They said they didn't even know what to say. They just felt like they needed to say something. And that kind of immediate reaction is powerful, especially coming from people who previously avoided anything religious. But what truly fascinated me was the number of viewers who said they didn't just feel moved. They felt drawn to understand the message behind the emotions. One person shared that after watching a single episode, they went online looking for explanations, interviews, and behind-the-scenes moments just to understand why the show felt so different. They described it as feeling pulled toward something, even though they couldn't explain what that something was. And honestly, that's the part that stays with me the most. People aren't being pressured. They're not being preached at. They're just watching a show, and something inside them responds instantly. And that response is what drives them to take these.
What truly left me speechless were the stories from viewers who said their instant reaction to The Chosen didn't fade away after the episode ended. Instead, it pushed them into making real changes in their lives far sooner than they ever expected. These weren't small changes like watching a few extra interviews or following the cast on social media. Some people said they took steps they never imagined themselves taking, simply because the emotional experience of the show lingered long after the screen went dark. One viewer explained that after watching the healing scenes, they suddenly felt the urge to forgive someone they had held anger toward for years. They said they didn't plan it, they didn't think it through. The desire just appeared inside them, strong and unexpected, almost like the show awakened something they had buried long ago. Another person shared that after watching the portrayal of the disciples' struggles, they began reflecting on their own mistakes in a way they had avoided for most of their life. They said The Chosen made them see vulnerability differently, not as a weakness, but as something deeply human. And that realization hit them instantly, changing how they viewed their relationships. I also read a message from someone who had never been inside a church as an adult, yet the moment they finished the first episode, they couldn't shake the feeling that they needed to step inside one, even just to sit quietly for a moment. They said it wasn't about becoming religious right away, it was simply about wanting to feel the same peace the show gave them. And the way they described that moment was so sincere that I couldn't help but feel moved by it. Stories like these kept coming, each one more surprising than the last. People talked about reconnecting with family members, apologizing for old wounds, rethinking the way they treated others, or even starting to read things they had once dismissed completely. And the most unexpected part is how often these decisions were made right after watching, without hesitation or planning. It's as if the emotional intensity of the show unlocked a sense of clarity in them, something that had been dormant for years. But what tied all these stories together was one simple theme. Viewers felt seen. They felt understood. They felt like the characters' struggles mirrored their own, and that connection triggered instant reflection. When you combine that with Jonathan Rumi's emotional performance and Dallas Jenkins' vision for raw, honest storytelling, you get something that goes far beyond entertainment. And maybe that's why so many viewers react so immediately. It's not just the powerful moments or the emotional scenes. It's the feeling of being understood by a story that wasn't created to pressure anyone, but simply to show humanity in its truest form. And when people feel something real, they respond instantly. So if anything, these stories prove that The Chosen has become more than a series. It's become an experience, one that reaches people in ways they didn't expect, touches parts of their hearts they forgot were there, and for some, creates an instant shift that changes how they see life, love, purpose, and themselves. And honestly, hearing all of this makes me believe that the impact of this show is only going to grow stronger with every season that comes. But let me know if you've ever felt something this immediate or unexpected from The Chosen, because I'm genuinely curious how many of you have experienced a moment like that.
What amazed me even more was discovering how quickly some viewers acted on the feelings they experienced while watching The Chosen. These weren't slow, gradual changes. They were immediate steps people took almost without thinking, as if something inside them pushed them forward before they could even process what was happening. I read a story from someone who said they finished the first episode and, without understanding why, felt this sudden urge to look up the passages being shown. They admitted they had never touched a Bible before, never even